I'm thankful to be here at this important conference on arts and the evolution of spirituality. In this lecture, we will stride into esoteric and early Christianity as we explore the artwork of painting's greatest genius, Leonardo da Vinci. This genius was well along with this painting in 1481 when he suddenly abandons it. This Adoration of the Magi was to have been his coming out masterpiece. It would have established Leonardo as the Florentine master. But he just walked away. Instead, he begins Virgin of the Rocks. Art historians have marveled at why. And when he left Florence for Milan early in 1482, he took other unfinished paintings with him, but not this Adoration of the Magi. Why? It was a dangerous time for anyone who held views that differed even slightly from that of the church. Leonardo faced an active inquisition and also the fundamentalist Dominican friar Savonarola. Once Leonardo arrived in Milan, he quickly won a commission from the Confraternity of the Immaculate Conception to paint something similar to this. Here you see the copy that stood in his studio for almost 25 years, while eventually a legal battle caused Leonardo to return to Milan to alter this copy to satisfy the confraternity. Leonardo's partner, Ambrogio de Preti, had long since decided they were done with it and had already varnished the surface. Painting halos and the staff of John the Baptist ended the legal battle and satisfied the confraternity. Why did Leonardo refuse to do so earlier? Now compare these two. The light of the Louvre is sunlight, while the copy seems to be moonlight. Obviously, the confraternity wanted it to be clear which boy was Jesus and which was John the Baptist. Why did Leonardo take nearly 25 years and a legal requirement to agree to such iconography? Perhaps we can find some clues from the Pistis Sophia, which was available for Leonardo to read. It too refers to not only two messiahs, but also two families. The passage from chapter 59 to 62 is most significant. Two boys, both named Jesus, are described in this passage. They seem to be about 12 years old. From chapter 61, we read, and I'll quote, "He embraced thee, he kissed thee, and thou didst kiss him, and then you became one." The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, long after Leonardo's life had ended. They were written in Hebrew and Aramaic by Essene initiates from 150 BCE until 70 AD, when the Roman army dispersed all Jews. These and other prophets expected two messiahs, one kingly and one priestly, perhaps out of the streams of Cain and Abel. They expected there to be a later merger so that the body for the Redeemer could represent all of humanity. A Jewish research team, Livius.org, wrote, the Qumranites expected the coming of not one, but two messiahs, one of priestly lineage and one of kingly. One scroll, the Damascus document, states, "The Messiah, which is the son of Joseph, will be made one with the son of David, Messiah, but he will be killed." We also find reference to two messiahs in three books of the Old Testament that you see listed here, Zechariah, Numbers, and Ezekiel, which also talks about a merger of the two. Several expectations of two anointed ones are also found in other holy texts, such as the book of Zohar from Kabbalistic roots and the testaments of the 12 patriarchs. In summary, the prophets expected two births, two messiahs, and a later merging. Rudolf Steiner's Christology, condemned by the Church, claims that the two nativity stories of Matthew and Luke describe different families and different births. This chart outlines these striking differences. In Matthew, the family was well off, lives in Bethlehem, and its Jesus had at least 6 siblings. In Luke, the family is poor, from Nazareth, and its Jesus was a single child. The Matthew family flees to Egypt, while the Luke family safely returns to Nazareth after paying their taxes and after having their newborn son circumcised 8 days later in the temple. Professor Bart Ehrman lists many other differences on his website, bartehrman.com. Like Origen and other fathers of Christianity, Steiner places the birth of Christ at the baptism. Luke's gospel once had the words, "This day I have begotten thee." We know that at age of 28, Leonardo was already part of the Medici household. As such, he would have known Marsilio Ficino and the secret members of the Accademia Platonica. There is an odd journal entry in his notebooks that says, "The Medici made me and the Medici destroyed me." Could he be referring to the role the Medici had in bringing him to a form of initiation when the old me is destroyed and the new me is born? Initiation profoundly changes an individual. Might we entertain the idea that Leonardo, here in his 30th year, received an initiation that so profoundly changed him that he knew he could no longer paint according to church dogma, but only according to spiritual truth? Florence at this time was home to many secret societies, and Leonardo kept his private life secret. When Leonardo moved to Milan, he set up his own academy based on the Accademia Platonica in Florence. The original hierophant of the Accademia Platonica was Georg Gemistus Plethon, who was the catalyst for the Renaissance. Emperor John had placed Plethon, called the wisest man on earth, among the set of envoys that he sent in 1438 to the Council of Florence. But because he was a pagan, he was not admitted. So instead, he offered lectures on the ancient Greek, Chaldean, Egyptian, and Persian philosophers and mystics. Cosimo de' Medici attended these lectures. Out of his excitement and inspiration, he founded the Accademia Platonica and placed his wisest man, Marsilio Ficino, as its head. In 1440, Plethon returned to Greece to found a mystery center near Sparta. Only a hierophant could do that. A hierophant knew how to initiate others. I conjecture that Ficino was so trained, and later he was the one who initiated Leonardo in his 30th year. Plethon brought a trunk full of books on esotericism, hermeticism, and magic. The Medici team set to work to translate them from Greek to Latin. These books helped to confirm for Leonardo the initiation he must have received in that Accademia Platonica before he left for Milan. Are these kissing babies a portrayal of that scene from the Pistis Sophia? Leonardo and his students did extensive studies of kissing babies. Why? Might it be the kissing scene from Pistis Sophia? Well, these boys are certainly not 12 years old. Leonardo used possibly innocent babies for the kissing scene so as not to stir up anti-homosexual sentiment that he had had to endure earlier in his life when police arrested him and a few other young men for nudity in public. Was the intent to depict non-sexual pre-puberty intimacy? This painting is by Jus van Cleve, who is known as the Leonardo of the North. Jus and his students painted dozens of these, perhaps 30 kissing babes. Why would any artist of his time paint this scene over and over again? More importantly, who is being depicted? Here we see the Thulan Madonna by Marco d'Aggiano, who was a student of Leonardo. Between her hands are these kissing babies. Note her hand gestures. Her left hand is on the book of wisdom. What is her right hand doing? Take a moment to compare the Thulan Madonna to Leonardo's Virgin of the Rocks that hung in the same studio where Marco d'Aggiano painted this. You'll notice the obvious similar head tilt. Pay attention to the hand gestures of the Madonna in both. In the Thulan, her left hand draws from the Book of Wisdom. In Virgin of the Rocks, it is her right hand that draws, or seems to draw, from the kneeling boy that she touches. Here we see the Holy Family by Bernardino Luini next to the Thulan Madonna. In each, we have the holy infants embracing between the hands of the woman. Why? The female's hand gestures are exactly the same as in Virgin of the Rocks. In Holy Family, her hands are incongruous for this scene. By doing this, Luini is telling the viewer that as Leonardo's student, he knew of the secrets of his paintings. Now we come to this one by Bernardino de Conti. Compare it to the Thulan Madonna. They are remarkably similar, except for the backgrounds and some other important details. What is symbolically meant by the book? To whom do you think its wisdom is granted? Look closely at their halos. What do the halos tell us? They show which boy is going to be crucified, the one with the 3 crosses on his head. Why 3 crosses? Because 3 were crucified on Golgotha, the place of Adam's skull. Now compare De Conti's painting with the original Virgin of the Rocks. Again, we see that the Madonna's hands are reversed. Thus, so too are the children. De Conti is showing us that the 2 children of Virgin of the Rocks are the same 2 children of holy infants embracing, but on different sides. And De Conti is telling us that his central figure is also bestowing wisdom from the Book of Wisdom. In Leonardo's painting, the bestowal is from the kneeling boy through the central figure to the sitting boy. By using the same background, De Conti is telling us that his painting reveals something important about his master's original Virgin of the Rocks. Here we have the familiar 2 children from Virgin of the Rocks. Now, who would you expect to be in their midst? Madonna, right? This painting is called The 3 Children. Given that John the Baptist is the one in the middle, who then are the other 2? Why has this not been noticed by art historians? Because it was unknown until 2005 when art historian Carlo Pedretti was allowed to use it in an exhibit in Ancona, Italy. 20 years ago. It remains in a private collection. Note the 2 boys are exactly in the same poses as in Virgin of the Rocks. The one on our left has royal robes. Unlike the Virgin of the Rocks, the boy on our right has that halo of three crosses. Okay, why is John here between them? We see these paintings speaking to each other. We can now conclude that the kneeling boy is not John the Baptist, but then who is this kneeling boy? The one who has three crosses for a halo, that must be Jesus. Again, who is that boy with the royal robes? Even Raphael must have been in on this secret. Here is his Madonna Terra Nuova. The boy on the left is John the Baptist. The naked boy in Madonna's lap is Jesus. But here again, we have a third boy with a halo and royal robes on the right. I conclude that the two who are not John the Baptist are the two messiahs, both named Jesus. If this theory of two Jesus children is to be seriously considered, then why is there just one Jesus later in life? Remember, the Gnostic text, the Pistis Sophia, and other texts spoke of a merger of the two messiahs as boys. These prophecies claimed that one Messiah would be kingly and the other priestly, and that before puberty they shall become one in thine hand. To avoid the watchful eye of the Inquisition, Leonardo addressed how the two became one through his students. This is Jesus Among the Doctors by Leonardo's student Bernardino Luini. The hand gesture over the heart of Jesus presents the theme of the two becoming one. This Jesus Among the Doctors is by Bernardino de Betto, also known as Pinturicchio. It is another example showing that Leonardo used his students to safely tell this story. The books of the learned doctors have been thrown on the ground, symbolic that their knowledge fades in the face of this 12-year-old boy. Note his halo with a red cross inscribed, indicating his divine destiny. Notice the hand gesture. It says, the two will become one. Next, we notice the feet. On our right, the child with the halo is standing on the earth, barefoot. On the left, both children's feet are lifted off the earth, one by socks and one by shoes. Of these two children, one is well dressed, like the son of a king, the other poorly dressed, like the son of a shepherd. These two are departing. They represent the two Jesus children as they once were, but will no longer be. We see that these two boys are framed by 5 individuals. Each of the 4 carry an object in their hand. These have not been tossed to the earth. The 4 facing the two children represent the physical, soma, psyche, and pneuma. The 5th is the Hierophant who performed the spiritual merging of these two within the Holy of the Holies. The spiritual result was the boy with a halo, Jesus of Nazareth. Leonardo abandoned what was to have been his masterpiece, the Adoration of the Magi, to paint not dogma, but the truth. He was bound to the truth through his initiation within the Platonic Academy in 1481. Thus, instead of this adoration, he immediately began to paint this Virgin of the Rocks. We found that Leonardo, with the help of his students, was able to show how 2 messiahs enabled Christ to enter a body representing all of humanity. Embedded in the stories of Matthew and Luke were 2 different streams, likely those of Cain and Abel, that reached resolution by emerging. Then Christ could enter such a human body for all of humanity. This story if told solely by Leonardo, may have led to a condemnation and death by the Inquisition. By spreading the story out over so many paintings and painters, a mystery was revealed in plain sight that was yet invisible to the Inquisition. I call that sheer genius on the part of Leonardo. Now, I left one character unidentified. Leonardo was a lover of wisdom, of divine wisdom, of the Virgin Sophia. Of the women at the cross, John 19 does not give a name for the mother of Jesus. There we read, quote, "There stood by the cross his mother, and his mother's sister Mary, wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene." End quote. In Luke, Mary was the only child of an elderly couple, Joachim and Anna. She had no sister. Now you are at the threshold of another secret of this painting. Metaphorically, Leonardo has been and continues to be our light at the end of the tunnel of materialism. He continues to lead us to restore our soul so that we can rediscover the spiritual essence of Christianity. And this brings me to the end. Thank you so much.